Hi guys, we're talking about Saga of the Swamp Thing Volume 1 by Alan Moore, Steve Bissette, and John Totleben. There's a total of 9 volumes that DC has put out of these in trade paperback, but we're just going to talk about the first volume. The first volume covers Saga of the Swamp Thing number 21 through 27. And 21 really gets things started with one of the classic stories from DC history called The Anatomy Lesson from February of 1984. So Alan Moore at this point had just started to kind of come in. He'd been on the British scene for just a little while, but he was just now starting to come into the American scene, and he wanted to start off with something of a sci-fi horror tale. I won't spoil it for you, but up until this point, from 1972 to 1984, Swamp Thing had been thought to have been a certain way, a certain character named Alec Holland. And in this lesson, in this anatomy lesson that he and Bissette and Totleben give to us, you come to find out that Swamp Thing is something completely different. They've got him in cryogenic freezer right there after they shot him in the last issue, and he's captured by the Sunderland Corporation. And they bring in the Floronic Man, who can speak to wood, and he has some almost elemental powers over wood and things of that nature, but he's not really human anymore. He wears the skin of a man, but he washes it off. So this particular instance is Sunderland taking him out of the deep freeze, taking Swamp Thing out of the deep freeze, and giving him to Jason Woodrue, the Floronic Man. And Woodrue is supposed to study who and what Swamp Thing truly is, and give him a better idea of how he could help Sunderland gain power over his enemies. But the Floronic Man is actually a villain. And so what he does is he frees the Swamp Thing and tells him about the file that Sunderland had read and Woodrue's report about him not being who he thought he was. And so Sunderland is running and running, trying to get out of his own building, only to find out that Woodrue has double-crossed him so that Swamp Thing could kill him, simply because Woodrue wants a cohort in Swamp Thing. So that's how the first issue of this first volume actually ends. And it's just called Book 1, Moore, Bissette, and Totleben, Volume 1. It's the older trade paperback from, I believe, 2005. I think that's when I got all of these. And so, like I said, it covers all the way from issue 21 all the way through issue 87 of Rick Veitch's Swamp Thing stories. Veitch was fired from DC off of the book with the story for issue 88 incomplete, because it came out about the same time that the Last Redemption of Christ came out. Last Temptation of Christ came out, and so DC didn't want any kind of heat for showing Swamp Thing going back in time and meeting Jesus. But anyway, that's further on down the line. But if you've never read the Alan Moore Swamp Thing books, I first read them when I was in my early 20s, and it will blow your mind. The artwork will blow your mind. Steve and John did an amazing job on this title, elevating it past horror, elevating it to something completely unlike anything else that was on the stands at that time. Unless it was being written by Moore, and at that point it was probably, you know, at least in the same level of quality. But a lot of people down this particular set of volumes for their original coloring. They said that the coloring is not up to snuff, but I like the original titles. I like the original books as they were printed, and this was the original colors by Tatiana Wood. So I think you can't do better unless you decide to go the absolute volume route, which is much more expensive and much heavier. It's larger than the Something is Killing the Children book that I was showing you earlier today. But I think this would be a good introductory issue / volume into the world of Swamp Thing, into the world of Alan Moore's mind. So if you get a chance to pick it up on Kindle, since Comixology doesn't really exist anymore, pick it up there. Or if you happen to not be snowed in somewhere and be out and about, then maybe you can pick it up at one of your local bookstores, one of the newer volumes of this at your LCS or your Barnes & Noble or whatever local bookstore you may have. Thanks again for your time. Hope you have a great afternoon, and we'll see you at the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks.